My name is Jason, and I'm one of the engineers on the Firefox DevTools team. And today we're going to look at the Firefox Debugger and how it parses the code that's run in the browser. We, we decided a year and a half ago to rebuild the debugger, which was a radical step, but a big reason why we wanted to rebuild it was we wanted to use the latest and greatest technologies, React, Babel, Webpack, um, all of which we thought would be a new way, that would be an exciting way to rethink the development flow for DevTools. And so the entire UI is built in React, and we're using Babel to parse the code client side and understand what's going on. And that powers everything. So let's see here. I've got this little simple create React app, and if I hover on name, you can see the value of name. What we did up behind the scenes was use Babel to parse this code, and Babel found the name token, that identifier. So then when we hovered, we knew what we wanted to evaluate. Today we're going to look at a bug that we have where when you hover on name as the parameter, if the parameter includes flow, we include the flow type in that little purple box. Now, that's not a big deal, but it would be nice if the purple box just were over the parameter, and then you can maybe hover on the flow type separately. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to remove this breakpoint over here. And I'm going to jump over to the Launchpad. You see, when we're working on the debugger, we don't actually want to work on Firefox because to rebuild Firefox every time would be kind of slow. So what we did was we built this little mini app that was capable of hosting the debugger and connecting remotely to another version of Firefox. So we've got the same little app over here, and now we're connecting to that. What's nice is I can change the debugger's code and just refresh and see those changes. So if I reload here, you'll see we're paused in the same app as before. Nothing really has changed. Cool. So let's jump into the code and see where we parse the code for these variables. And then maybe we can get a sense of what's going on here. So close this. The source directory is organized in terms of components, actions, reducers, selectors, etc. That node modules directory is just somehow got in there. I'll have to remove that. It's probably just locally there. We've got workers, and then we've got a parser directory. Over here, we have get symbols. Symbols came from Atom's pop-up, where if you do a command P, you get files. If you do command T, you could search for functions or whatnot. These editors just call the functions and variable symbols. So if I looked for like get something, you can see that. Anyways, we have a parser function that will go through the AST that Babel creates and find all the functions, variables, member expressions, etc. So I think a good way to do this would be to actually look at the tests. So for parser tests, our parser code has some of the best tests we have in the code base. Let's turn on just one of these, maybe this one. And now if I run just watch, source, workers, parser, tests, get symbols, we'll see all the symbols for a React component. Well, we didn't see anything, and that's probably because when we format the symbols, we didn't actually print anything. But we could do that pretty quickly. Oh boy. 1 second. Kind of new to using VS Code. It's actually only the second day I've been using it. We definitely broke something, but my goal was just to do console log and then format symbols. Because we want to output it and we also want to see the values. So it's saying that that comma is not expected. Maybe we do need another one of those. Okay. Yeah, so when we look at the React component in our fixtures, we see it's got a couple identifiers. It's got React, component, identifiers are like a variable, and it's even got a class. So let's see if we can create a new fixture that has some flow code. So this could just really be anything. Maybe we have like a sum function that takes a number and another number. I don't know, not a big deal. And we can add that example down here. Flow. And if we run that, yeah, we'll see it has two variables and some identifiers, AA, BB, etc. It actually duplicates them because these two are coming from the parameters, and this is that little like return expression. So we can parse this code, but what I'm worried about right now is the location. So if we go back to flow, we'll see A, the parameter, has a starting location of column 13 and an ending location of 22. If you look below, the expression, which has A, starts at column 9, ends at column 10, but our parameter takes up this entire space. B does the same thing, starts at 24 and ends at 33. So what I want to figure out is if we can check to see if our identifier has a child node which we want to exclude, if we want to exclude the number. So to do that, now that we have tests, we can jump back to get symbols, and let's look at where identifiers are coming from. So this is a pretty big function. Extract symbols will traverse over the source text AST that's generated from Babel. And if we think it's a variable, we'll add it to the variables list. And at some point we're going to say, we think it's an identifier. Okay, right here. So if we think it's identifier, we get the start and end location based on path.node.location. So we can even log that here. I like to use objects because then it's kind of a little bit more clear what we're talking about. And we're getting a bunch of locations. So let's just only log if the start dot line maybe is equal to 1. That way we'll only get some A and B. Yeah, okay. So that's cool. Location is clearly the problem here. Let's see if we can look at the node and get a sense of what's going on. So here we have an identifier. And I see the type annotation below. That's really interesting. So perhaps the type annotation is just a sibling of the node. and it has a location too. I wonder if we have some other information. Maybe not, but I guess we could just say, what's the start of type annotation? So if node.type annotation, oh, it does not like that. That might just be formatting though. Console log. Oh, it doesn't like it because it's path.node. Okay, we could do that. Okay, so we'll log out the start location. Same thing here. And I'm just looking for any clues we can have. Okay, so 14? Huh. I thought that would have like a line and like a line and character, but I guess 25, and our other start was 14. Is that what we want? So what I'm wondering is, okay, so we've got the type starts at character 14, and our source location is 13, then 22, and then it ends on 22. So yeah, 14 could be perfect. So I'm going to cheat for a second and say if the type annotation start is a const car, maybe we just take this path node location dot end dot, what is it? Oh, sorry, column, and set it so this is kind of horrible in a way because we're just changing these values, but if it gives us what we want, I mean, maybe. Oh, and we should put that in there because we don't know if we'll have it. Okay, so now we see that our values are different. Instead of going from 113 to 122, we're going from 113 to 114 and 124 to 125. That's exactly what we want. Well, I didn't think it would be this easy, but a short video is fine in my book. I'm going to clean this up a little bit though. So we know that we have an end here, and we're going to push that on. So we could say end is equal to end column. The reason this I guess doesn't work because this was a const. The reason I like this approach is by using the spread operator, we're creating a new object with a column, and we're not actually changing the path node location at all. So if someone else wants to look at what the identifier's and column is, it's still going to have the same values. And that's nice because if we changed it, we could get into trouble where maybe things work just fine now, but if the order of operations changed, it stopped working, and it would be pretty confusing. So now we're not changing how Babel works at all, or we're not. We're just saying when we calculate the identifier location, let's take into account whether there's a type annotation and only show an end column that excludes them. So that is enough to say our identifiers and location is changed. Our tests look perfect. And I'm going to go back to our app. So we want to put a breakpoint here. I'll throw up Firefox. And I'm wondering if we even made the change. I don't think we refreshed. Okay. Yeah, good. So we'll hover on name, and that works. Oh boy, that did not work. We're going up to the curly. Okay, so we'll have to look at it a little bit more, but that's fine. So if we open up the debugger, and this is one of those funny things where this debugger, of course, hasn't been updated, but it's the same code basically as the running one. And so let's jump in and see what we're doing under the hood. So we have this component directory with an editor and preview, and we can look at the whole path. The first thing that's going to happen is we'll mouse over the token. And of course, this is really sensitive, right? Like basically anything is a mouse over. But that's fine. We'll go in here and jump into update preview. And at this point, we know what the token text is. So we can say, oops. We can say if the token text is equal to name, we want to pause, otherwise we don't. So I'll drop that breakpoint, and now we can safely move to name, and hopefully we will try to set the preview with that name property. And this is going to fire off a Redux action to do all the work. So we can just jump there. And this is going to take us to like bind action creators. And now we're inside of our action. So we've already gotten all the symbols. And we've got our token position and name. And we're going to see if we can find a relevant expression. Now this location is exactly what we were computing before, but this column is crazy. 142? That is absurd. But it shows you why it goes all the way to the end and not just the name param. So that's not working. But if we copy this code, we can drop it into our fixture and have the same thing that we were getting before. And now we can look at identifiers, name, 7 and 6, and whoa, yeah, 142. That is not good. And I'm just curious, if I remove the imports, does that change it? A bit. Well, no. We're looking for name on line 2, and name is still kind of funky, but it's a different value. It's 48, not 142. If we get rid of this, does it change things? Nope, 14 to 48. If we get rid of that, 1448. If we get rid of the flow type, does that help? 14 to 18, it does. If we make this, I don't even know if that works. Yeah, that doesn't like it. If we make it an app, 14 to 30, it's changing things, but it's pretty confusing. Okay, So let's use this example and see if we can bring it down. We'll go back to symbols, and we'll go back to path node, and we can log out the path node. And I've stopped really caring about the formatting of all these identifiers because we've got something better. So we can just turn that off here. So we're looking at an identifier with the name name. We believe it's 14 to 26. It does have a type annotation. The type annotation starts at 48. Okay, so that's where that number is coming from. But oh gosh, that start is like all the characters leading up to it. So it's like, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 48. We probably botched this and wanted path.node.type annotation.loc.start.column. So let's throw that into here. Yeah, column 18, that's much better. Okay. So now we're seeing some changes. So, our flow example is now an app. I don't really care. And instead of having A and B and whatnot, it has name 14 to 18. That's great. All right, so we'll just change that. I love flow snapshots. It makes it so easy for this kind of thing. And we can jump back here. I'll remove this breakpoint and this one, and we'll just refresh. My question is, why did this work earlier? Okay, that's kind of nice. So now we can hover on name, we get the value, and if you hover on string, nothing happens. But that's fine by me. Okay, so that's it. We've looked at how symbols are computed. We've looked at an identifier that could have a type annotation. And thanks to having a bug, we were able to look at the flow of execution from hovering on a token to deciding whether this was a token we wanted to evaluate to actually doing the AST work of getting it. I think it was in set preview right here. So sometimes bugs are helpful. Sometimes they force you to kind of understand the problem a little better. And let's look at our patch just to wrap up. Yeah, so we now check to see if the identifier has a type annotation. If it does, we get its start column location and we update the identifier's end location. And I guess we also added we added a new test, and we also turned all these tests off. I wish there was an easy way when you're using just in cases to only run one test, but I don't know it. So we'll rerun this. And you know what? We'll just add this as a patch. We'll add this new test, which has a couple identifiers with good identifier locations. And we'll add the new test. And we can just call it only show or maybe we exclude flow type. And I already created a branch. So we'll push that branch up to GitHub. And here's our branch. This fixes an issue with flow, I think. Flow. One second. Preview highlight. Previously. Which included name : string. We now update the and we can include a screenshot. Okay. All right, looks good. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.